Welcome back, chooms, this is LastKnownMeal, and today we're going to cover one of the most controversial and morally difficult gigs in Phantom Liberty. Maybe some of you already guessed, the gig in question is Talent Academy. And before we begin, I will go into spoilers of the gig, so if you haven't played it, I recommend doing it and coming back to this video later. And while researching what other people have to say about this, on every thread it was usually a comment that what was done in this academy is morally wrong, and usually people went through it guns blazing and they flatlined everyone. To give some background on the job, in Cyberpunk universe, just like in real life, you have talent academies for various sports. Usually the most popular ones are going to be with the most popular like football, basketball, American football, baseball and so on. These academies take on usually juniors or well kids that might have potential, and if they do, they sign a contract which basically in some sense makes them an investment, and usually investments are protected at all costs. This also means that you have people who are willing to push these kids to very demanding regimen plans for training, diet and so on. And from time to time you had agents or coaches who wanted to push more so that their investment can win or well sign a contract, so they are maybe exposed to certain pills or steroids in some form. Obviously it's a bit different now with all of the regulations, but it still happens. But what if you take that and you put it in a cyberpunk universe, where essentially all rules and regulations including morals are out of the window, and in all of that you mix in cyberware boosters and various other techniques that might enhance an individual to perform better. So ultimately you sell them to a club or a team for a much higher price, because well, just like with every investment, you want the biggest return. Now of course, there are some faint ideas of regulation still left in some areas of New United States and free states in the Cyberpunk universe, but even that is only because, let's say, the leak of that information might damage someone's public image, so it's kept hush-hush. Now you take all of that and you bring it into Dogtown, where there are no faint ideas of regulations or laws, it's only interest and money. And that's when we arrived at this gig. So you are tasked by Mr. Hands to go there and sort out a situation, because it seems they're not really paying taxes and they like to cut corners, so now the client wants that, basically all of their information about clients and everything else. Keep in mind that the taxes they talk about is usually bribe that someone very important didn't get, so now they're going after them. Even Mr. Hands says at the beginning that this is, let's call it a sports academy, because when you enter you see it for yourself, and it's very interesting like Mr. Hands and how he negotiates this contracts in a bit, especially because Mr. Hands does have a kid, so I think in some way maybe his father instinct kinda kicked in a bit. It's very exclusive, usually filled with agents from various teams who go there to negotiate contracts and, you know, secretive at that. To the point where you sign an NDA, and if anything leaks, they exclude your team or well that team which leaked from this establishment, meaning that they have less chance to get prime talent, and if they don't do it or can't, someone else will and they will beat them in a match, which ultimately means less money for the team, and well, who wants to be last in sport? So once you go there you kinda see it already what's this about. The reason why they came into Dogtown is because they can enhance these kids with illegal cyberware to become faster and stronger with, as I said, booster and cyberware, which is, well, really not legal for their age limit or even if their bodies can withstand all of it. And after you go to the bar, that's when information really starts coming out. You see all of those sleazy like business executives and agents hanging around there. When you realize for how long this was actually going, that's when people morality starts kicking in. You start asking yourself, is this right or wrong? And usually most people will come to a conclusion that it's kinda wrong, right? Also, before we begin, I just want to say that I really hate this guy Caden. Just give me a sec. And now that we sorted that out, it's kinda cool that he can actually blow your cover and then you have to fight your way through everything, or well, there is a certain way to kinda stop that if you like suffocate the guy who's, you know, taking you there to see like what actually happens, but usually I kinda just, you know, take it slow and don't really talk to Caden. Now, after I made my way down to see more of this area with rooms which do remind me of a certain prison or even a bit like a zoo, where you get to browse for talents you want and you have these big windows where you can see what they're doing. We get to talk to Emma, who is actively training to join her favorite team, Atlanta Wolves, because she is going to be their new pitcher. Some of the things we can see right away is how difficult their training regimen is, doing a cardio plus reading a book, talking to a shrink and all of that. You know, basically they cover every bit of a person so they can prepare them mentally and physically for a luxurious contract, and basically because they have to play for a very long amount of time. Even when we asked, like, don't you miss your mom, there was some hesitation from the kid. Like, she does, but she is strong, so she has to endure. It would be interesting if maybe the shrinks they talk to kind of put this in their head, because, well, you have shrinks who specifically focus on athletes because besides physical readiness, the mental one has to be there. That's what actually wins games. That's where we get to meet Tommy, who is also chosen, but so far he didn't get a good offer, and we do find out that he would be rejected from the program anyway if he doesn't intervene, so the kid is actually back on the streets. And they have to be kids because, well, if you grow up over a certain age, it's not really viable for teams, sadly. It's also a case in real life. Although it depends from sport to sport at what age you are considered too old to play or too old to sign a contract or go into a team and whatever. It's very complicated on that sense. This is also where Tommy says to us that this is the only hope for him and his dad because, well, they are from Dogtown and there are not, you know, a lot of opportunities there for anyone. So if he stays and gets selected, that means fame and money, but also illegal chrome and who knows what. But if he is not selected, it's going back to Dogtown to barely survive and maybe get flatlined by some random gonk. Even when you ask Tommy about what he wants to do, you know he's a kid, so he will say that he wants to have fun or take a vacation. Sadly, that cannot be done if he stays in Dogtown, but even if he is selected, who knows when that vacation will actually come. And that's where you also meet Fiona, the CEO, or well, leader of this talent agency, and oh boy, she does have a lot to say. In my opinion, Fiona is a classic example of a corpo or a person with some sort of a savior complex, but some demented version of that, because everything she does is business. She says that's her job, is to protect her business and the clients. Even Johnny makes a remark like saying like, business, you call this business? And after that she tells me, think of the children. Why would you really deprive them of their only chance for a better life? This is where that moral dilemma comes into spotlight. I will go for myself first, so ultimately everything that happens here is not really for the children. I know, newsflash. Fiona behaves in a way that all of these children are a statistic. You have everything, but if you don't make it, you are back on the streets. That's it, business as usual. There is no saving here. Every talent is considered pretty much like a project or an item you would sell in a store. And in sports it's like that, you know, I mean, but in Cyberpunk scenario specifically, those aspects are taken to another level. These people take kids from vulnerable areas or poor families because they know it's their only chance, so they will be more prone to succeed and to try harder because who wants to go back to Dogtown? And there is a few ways you can handle this, either shoot and destroy everything, make a deal with Fiona to leak some of the stuff and also get Tommy on board to be signed, or just leak everything and get out. You will be attacked when you exit in that case, meaning that Fiona wanted to protect her interest, of course, and that means you must be flatlined. Classic corpo behavior. What I did in the end is that I got the data and I flatlined her, which ultimately means that all of the clients, kids, and the rest are out. I mean, some are out on the streets, while others are back to their clubs where they have to get talent from other areas. So let's talk about morality now. On one hand, being that we are in a dystopian universe, fully knowing what sorts of stuff happens in Dogtown and the rest of Night City and the world, are these kids going to have a better future if selected? Well, yes. They can move out, get their family, get a lot of eddies, an apartment, food, and so on. If they don't, well, you get them back to their families or the streets if you have no family, where they basically have to survive, and things which can happen may be worse than top-of-the-line chrome and environment where health and safety is monitored. And we can get back to Tommy here because, well, his dad is actually David, who's selling clothes in the stadium. You can meet him there after all of this gig, and depending on your choices, either he's accepted, dad is happy, his son is going to Europe to play football, but if you don't strike a deal with Fiona, if you meet him, well, he will tell you that you are wrong and that only hope his son has right now is gone and he has to stay here to survive. So what is actually wrong or right here? Well, we can blame the corpos for taking advantage of all of them, promising money, and they specifically do it here because they know these kids will work hard because they must, and they also can be easily disposed of if they don't cut it, if they are not selected. So it's not really like Fiona is saving people, it's just in this business idea she has, an aspect of that is security, which is her entire pitch. But also because, well, social morality is pretty much gone in 2077, this is technically not the worst thing people do. Just go to Arasaka and everywhere else, I mean, you will maybe find a similar program to this one, or worse. There is also a matter of perspective. What is morally right or wrong for me and for you comes from, let's say, experience, parents, society you live in, your social status, upbringing, and various other aspects. Now let's look at Tommy's father's perspective. Maybe he knows that they chrome, these kids with something they shouldn't, and maybe because it's illegal, but it's the only chance. Tommy must accept it because worse things can happen. He must survive. And it's such a good written story because it puts you into this moral dilemma, and with each decision you make, someone loses. Like, even if you strike a deal with Fiona, putting Tommy on the list might mean that some other kid will not get a chance and it's back on the streets. If you flatline everyone there, did you really make a good decision, or was it only morally right decision? And to what extent? In this world and in ours, someone always loses when someone wins. Simple as that. Look, even going through this program can be difficult for the kids. Having that fame and money means you are in someone's pocket. They own you and they can use you however they want. You can also look at the setting of the location. It's very luxurious, expensive drinks, and the area, which is basically a shop. Reminds me of the escort situations IRL, people get traded and they are dumped into these luxurious areas, but it's only for clients. Escorts there are either smuggled and they accept the contract and run with it. Doesn't mean that they are happy, it's only for the client, everything there is. Similar with this one, it's all a show and ultimately no one really cares about them. They have their nice environments and books and training regimen, not because they want them strong for the sake of being strong or for the sake of the children, but for the sake of the money and selling that kid to a better price, to a better team. Funny thing is that you arrive at this gig because they don't want to pay taxes to someone. It's all about the money. Even the person who contacted Mr. Hands, it's never going to be about saving anyone. And this is the reason why I love this gig. It makes you think, makes you walk a fine line of, let's say, morality, and give you a chance to think it through and see what is the best outcome in all of this. But that decision is ultimately up to you. But the reason for making this video is because this gig is presented so well that it's not just black and white. It's a whole mix of grey, and your morality and question of morality itself is brought here. How you view at this and from what perspective and what angle you will see this. Not everyone is going to have the same idea or, well, the same, let's say, moral capacity to look at this or from which angle. I also saw comments like, I want Tommy to sign, but I also want to flatline everyone there. Well, that's not how it goes. You either flatline everyone and Tommy and the rest of the kids don't really go anywhere. You cannot have both. So what do you choose? And this is the question I will leave you with, so let me know down below, what did you think about this gig and what do you think about all of this, like this whole decisions and everything, every outcome of this gig? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button for more, and as always, join our community on Twitter and Discord. Huge thanks to my current Patreon supporters, and as always, stay classy chooms, and I will see you in a new video.